that this is just too much and too painful, but she has to because she owes too many favors to too many people because they've taken too much money. So she has to at least make it look, well, if she has to stay in the race and make it look like that she's running, she's not doing a very good job of making it look like she's running because it doesn't look like she really is. I'm serious. I don't know. If I were her, I'd be out there pressing the flesh pretty damn hard. Just pounding the pavement. Because, you can, remembering that she got, smarted very hard and badly back in 08 and 09 with Obama. Yeah, it's Hillary's. Yeah, she's going to be the nominee and for the Democrat Party. And all of a sudden, here comes this tall, skinny, no experienced chap out of Illinois that just took it from her and became president. Now, but she's got this issue that she does need to put to rest the issue of the emails. She's got to get rid of that email issue. She can't keep bringing that email thing around with her because it's bringing her down. People are not they're not very happy. And as a matter of fact, here's something from the Politico from Josh Gerstein piece. Dems and Gowdy spar over Hillary Clinton emails. Now, Democratic lawmakers use a hearing on government transparency I love this thing, government transparency. Who do these people think they're trying to kid here? There is no government transparency. Especially when you're, when you have these meetings in the dark of night and people can't talk about bills that they're, the language in bills that they're reading and going to vote on and all that kind of, there's no transparency. Really. But Democratic lawmakers used a hearing on government transparency Tuesday to defend a Democratic presidential candidate and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton by pointing to the email practices of former state secretaries of state Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice. Now, Stephen Lynch, a Democrat out of Mass, asked, do we have any emails from Secretary Powell? Well, Secretary Powell and Secretary Rice are not under fire for possibly having sold and peddled influence in exchange for donations to a family foundation or charity in which especially they are being enriched by. I love how they try to obfuscate this. See, the whole notion that, we don't have any emails of Colin Powell. Well, Secretary Powell, he's not under suspicion of doing anything, one, illegal, or not under the suspicion of, two, hiding anything. And you can better believe that if he was, they would be demanding his emails just as hard as we're demanding Hillary's emails. Now, he asked the House Oversight Committee hearing with top Freedom of Information Act officers from 5 government agencies, including the State Department. Now, we did ask him if he had any official records. Assistant Secretary for Administration Joyce Barr said he did not have any records to return to us. Barr added that some official emails for Rice had been located, but she said she rarely used email at all. So if she didn't use email, how's she going to turn over email? She didn't use it. I love look, you can't compare. Sorry. It was, email is much more prominent today than it was then, even then. Well, it is. Emails have been around for a while now. It started out with, AOL, you've got mail. And they even had a movie about it. But it wasn't something that was very prolific. And it wasn't something that government officials used a lot of. Emails are now It's kind of like texting. You know, it's huge now. It always wasn't that way. But now texting is huge. So you got to ask, what is he trying to compare? There is no comparison. Now with the with the current Secretary of State, Kerry, now you can compare Kerry and Clinton and how Kerry handles, his emails, because they're similar. And you could say that maybe the Secretary of State in 2016, after the 2016 election, could compare because they're going to be similar. But only in the fact that it's more prominent now, as it was under Clinton. Not necessarily because there's something that people are going to want to see. I mean, they I don't know. Kerry doesn't have a private email server anywhere, as far as we know yet, does he? And, other secretaries of state didn't have private email servers, and they didn't erase them, and they didn't try to keep the emails from people, and they didn't have family foundations, and they weren't accused of peddling influence by selling it to foreign government and foreign agents and foreign operatives. All of this is under Hillary's watch. So, Representative Lynch, Democrat from Massachusetts, you're way out of line. You can't even come close to being relevant with that statement. You can't. You're not. You look like a damn fool. Just going to put it out there. You look like a damn fool. Well, we don't have any emails from Condoleezza Rice or Colin Powell, do we? Well, yeah, hey, Condoleezza Rice, she kind of didn't use email. Oh. And Colin Powell, well, he didn't use a lot of it either, and he didn't have a private email server. Oh, well, they should still turn over their emails. Well, how do you turn over emails that don't exist? Not erased, like in the case of Hillary, but don't exist because they were never written. Hillary once said, while cackling about it, when somebody asked her about if she keeps a journal or a diary, and she said, "Oh, heavens, no, because then it would be subpoenaed." Well, why didn't she ever take her own advice about emails? Why did she? I'm kind of glad that she's got all those emails, but we can't get to them yet. But why didn't she take her own advice? Here's a woman that knew that whatever she wrote down could someday come back to bite her, and yet she still did it with email. Not only did she do with email, she did it on her own server, and she let people know that she had her own server and got caught with her own server and her own. Did she have her own BlackBerry? She had her own cell phone. How do you get away with doing stuff that is so blatantly illegal? It's illegal. You're not, you're a government official. There are laws that take care of that kind of stuff. Just saying. You got, folks. I'm almost speechless because this woman, that woman. This woman is just, she's a craze ball like the current occupant of the Oval Office. She's not going to be any better. She really, think about it. She's going to be the same kind of radical leftist that Obama is, but she's going to be the female version. She's not, she doesn't often seem to be a happy person. And, that cackling laugh often comes across as being forced. Really? I ain't no ways tired. I've come too far from where we were. really? I mean, if a Republican were to do something like that, the left would jump all over them for trying to make fun of people, of color, really. But she's able to get away with it and connect. How is that? I don't know how that is. I wish I knew how that was, but yeah, anyway. Continuing with the story, ranking Democrat Elijah Cummings of Maryland called startling the lack of records from the two Bush-era secretaries. I hope that we look at that era just like we have been looking at the president. They're not getting it. It's not the lack of, it is a lack of records because there aren't any. There aren't any emails. They were never created. Not that they were erased and hidden. They were never created. And this whole notion that, you got to get the same thing from the Republic. It's not the same thing. I mean, if Colin Powell was accused of peddling influence for, donations or what have you, and he was using emails in order to try to hide whatever he was doing, I'd say go for it. Get his email. But one, he didn't try to peddle influence. Two, he has no family foundation that he was peddling influence with or for. And three, he wasn't taking donations from foreign governments and foreign entities and foreign agents. And four, he didn't have a lot of emails to begin with. So the reason why you don't have all their records is one, because you didn't ask for them, and two, they never existed because they were never created in the first place. Kind of like Condoleezza, that's like saying, how come we don't have Bush's BlackBerry records then if we're looking for Obama's? Well, because Bush didn't have a BlackBerry. Well, we don't have any of those records. It's because they don't exist. They were never created. You see the comparison, what they're trying to do, folks? They're trying to obfuscate the fact that under Bush, none of those records are available because those kind of records were not created. Under Obama and Hillary, those types of records were created. So therefore, we're asking for those records we're not asking for stuff that they didn't create. I mean, that'd be, okay, well, we want to see what's on Hillary's iPad. Well, maybe Hillary didn't have an iPad. If she didn't have an iPad, then those records could not have possibly been created, so there wouldn't be any existence of any records. I mean, that would be stupid. Stupid for the Republicans, and like Gowdy saying, we demand those iPad records. Well, she didn't own an iPad. Well, we demand the records anyway. Well, they were never created. Well, then, damn it, why don't we have their records? Because they never existed. So this is the exact same thing with Bush. They didn't exist because they were never created, because they didn't use those devices the way these people are using these devices. They didn't have their own server, evidently. Their own private server, email server. And look, I'm sure that if Colin Powell did, they'd be all over it and saying, well, where's Colin Powell's email server? Where's Condi Rice's email server? Well, Condi Rice didn't really use email all that often. Good for her. So this whole notion that you're asking for the same records that from them that you're asking from Hillary is ludicrous, because they didn't exist, because they were never created. So you can't get nothing from nothing. You can't get something from nothing. Anything times zero is what, folks? Zero, right? You learn that in kind of like, I think, in mathematics in third grade when you're learning a multiplication table. If you take any number and multiply it by zero, what's the answer? Zero. So, same thing with the electronic records creation. If they never created them, then guess what? They don't exist. And if they don't exist, you can't get them. It's not that somebody hid them or tried to erase them. They were just never created. Zip, zero, zilch, nada. So the answer's zero. Get over it. Hillary's guilty.